There you go.
All right, perfect. All right, this is Fractal Weapons. I'm your host, Arkeem Ra. Today we are talking with Shane Bales, aka the Runer. Shane is a self-proclaimed former Illuminati member who has seen what people refer to as the programs, whatever you want to call them, from multiple angles, doing his work. He had a blog, the Runer blog. Well, it's still up. You can still go on it and check it out, where he talked about a lot of different things. Probably the first time that anybody talked about him was there on that blog. And that's kind of how we got known from the community, for those of you who aren't familiar with his work. And he did a show with Penny Bradley and also Ryder Lee recently, which caused maybe what you could call controversy. I don't know a better word for it, within the secret space program community, because basically, well, there's just been a lot going on. And but basically, your perspective is that it's kind of tomfoolery, and there's a deeper underlying operation going on underneath it all, and that's kind of like something that people are seeing to not actually fully see the picture. Would that be an accurate representation of you and your work?
Definitely close. I mean, yeah, I guess just to like establish some baselines off the top, like I am an unintended whistleblower. I didn't write the blog so that the whole community would take it and do what they did with it. I've kind of had a on and off relationship with the community because of that, because I don't consider myself a whistleblower. I'm not a person who thinks that everyone needs to hear my message or any of my information, any of that kind of thing. And, you know, I'm not here to try and change your mind or anyone else's mind on anything. Because the blog was discovered and I do these talks, you know, people want to ask me questions, and I have a policy when I get asked questions that if you ask me the question, I will be honest with you. Just is what it is. I don't do that to hurt your feelings or discredit you or anything else that you do. It's just, you know, my view on it. My view on these things is definitely very different than most people. Big part of it is that, like, it's not recovered memory for me, right? Like, it's just as much as I remember having to reschedule this conversation with you last Sunday, I remember everything I've done. I could go through every scar on this body, and there are many. I could point to all of them and tell you exactly how and when I got them. And I've been in those simulations and I've been through all of those things, and it's conscious. It's not something I learned about listening to people on the internet. It's not something I recovered in a psychedelic experience or a meditation experience or through any type of other means. I've never been disconnected from that. It's just daily life for me. So when I'm in this community and I hear people speak, I hear a lot of that, where it's like, oh, I recovered my memories when I was like, you know, in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s or my 50s or whatever that is. And I can't compute that, because for me, you know, I remember everything. You know, when it was time for me to go to outer space in a simulation, I knew I was going to outer space in a simulation, and I came back right to this very chair that I sat in when it started, right? So that's kind of where I come from for all of this. And then the other part of the baseline is just, you know, leading up to this, you've had a dramatic tendency to misinterpret and misrepresent the things that I say based on your emotional reactions, and then take an action in order to get attention. Would that be unfair to say?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if I'm like trying to get attention other than maybe your attention. I wanted to talk to you. But I do want this conversation to be had in a sober, logical manner. And again, as I said off the record, I'm sorry if I was reacted to things emotionally, if I or anything like that, because you know, this does affect me deeply in my life. There's a lot of trauma attached to it, and there were some certain things that you said that really triggered me. Like, and I'll just be blatantly honest. I'm not trying to like bring up bad blood again, but the whole comment where, you know, you look at these guys and they don't look like they could fight anyone, and they're normal people, et cetera, et cetera. You know, that's kind of the point, is we are normal people, as we are. And, you know, we're not going to all be buffed out, you know, 6'5", Hulk. I don't know. That's not how this all works.
No,
There's
physical
claws and
skill is
stuff.
transferable, man. Physical skill is transferable. There's no way that they put you into an altar and make you work out and you're still not worked out in your regular form. That's not possible. So no, I am going to forever call bullshit on that kind of nonsense. If you do not physically represent today what you seem to think you are capable of, then you probably weren't capable of those things, because you would still, right?
My
There's a
opinion on
difference
that
between-
is
there's a
that
difference
we,
between alternate consciousness and muscle memory, right?
yeah, these are alters are compartmentalized. They're put underneath the surface so that you can't access them. And our consciousness is people can access our consciousness, but we are physical. We can't have somebody walking around on the streets, a normal civilian, with these abilities. And that's part of the reason, in my opinion. I'm not trying to state this as fact. I want people to form their own opinion on this, but in my opinion, that's the reason why people are in these programs. It's not necessarily just to throw you out in space and make and use you for free slave labor and military operations. It's also because if there are people who are powerful star seeds, for lack of a better term, that have latent abilities, in my opinion, that's a reason why they have to break us when we're born, is because otherwise you have this being walking around that has abilities that's too powerful. Also, I would argue I'm not saying it's fact, but I think that there could be quite a few people who came here with a mission, something that they needed to do, and they made sure, the powers that be made sure that, you know, you don't remember that, and that you just kind of live your life without knowing your mission anymore, forgetting it. I'm not stating these things as fact. I think people should form their own opinion, but that's kind of the conclusions that I've come to, and looking into this stuff. But again, I think that you have like you said, a unique perspective, because you haven't ever experienced what it's like to, you know, get kidnapped, to not be fully aware of what even happened to you, and then wonder why you have these memories. And it's going to give you a different perspective on things than somebody who has to go through screen memories to even figure out like what actually happened. And that's one thing that I kind of wanted to touch base on with you, is like, look, people, there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of bullshit in this community, and a lot of people don't get along, but there are some things we can agree on. And what we can agree on is that there is manipulation of the masses on a mass level. And that's why I think that we can talk and maybe try to get to the bottom of it together. Maybe not agree on everything, but I think that this is all mind control. And that's where, whether or not we agree on the outcome, what they're doing with the mind control, what's real, what isn't, I think we can agree that it's happening. And I have followed your work. I've done some research. Obviously, haven't watched every video or read everything, but I do find a lot of your perspective on the programs, what's going on, interesting. And I think that there are people that maybe are just shutting you down and not listening to you when they should maybe try to at least open their ears to listen to what you have to say. And that's another reason why I wanted to bring you on the show. Yeah, sorry if that was a little rant there.
No, all good. You're right in that we agree more than we disagree, right? Is that obviously they are doing this to people, and it is a different perspective for me being consciously aware of it, right? Like I was taken places and brought places when I was young enough to not really understand what was going on, but like to, have to be kidnapped from my home and taken places wasn't necessary because I went willingly, right? So
and that has to do with being an Illuminati bloodline.
Part of it,
right?
Basically what it all boils down to, and where we could probably kind of agree, is that, human beings, and it's got nothing to do with star seeds or any of that type of nonsense that is also part of the program, But also, you know, human beings are capable of a lot more than we're allowed to do. Let's put it that way. Our magic, if you will, our psychic abilities, our telepathic abilities, our telekinetic abilities, all of those abilities that we have, we should all have. Not you because you're special, or me because I'm Illuminati bloodline, or that person because they're whatever person incarnated from whatever fucking planet. All of us. And some of us exhibit more of that when we're children than others. And that's why they have a lot of programs in school, a lot of different aptitude screening programs, testing programs, in order to identify those type of children who are demonstrating those type of what they call hypersensory perception abilities, right? And then, yes, from there, they would take that person, usually not by force, right? Usually, you know, and I think we might have talked about this, allergy shots was a cover as an example, right? They would convince the parent that this child needed to go monthly allergy shots. And so they would bring their child to this doctor's office. The doctor would take them into a little back room. Tomfoolery would go on, and then they would come out of their appointment, go home like nothing ever happened, right? That's a little bit even different than kidnapping. This idea that they're somehow sneaking into people's houses and taking them in their underwear and returning them back without anyone noticing is absurd, and it just is. But
I disagree with that, but that's why we're here.
Well, again, if you can't establish a baseline of reality, I have to revert to your baseline of reality, which is that you are unable to interpret and represent reality correctly based on your emotional responses. And if you believe these things happen to you, or you have trauma for any reason, then your emotional responses are going to lead you to those conclusions, right? And therefore, I can't really hear you when you say that because of the character you've shown me. But anyways, back to topic. When they take them or do these things to them, they're basically studying them, testing their abilities. And in order to do that, they will use MK Ultra so that they can call in the altar, test them through that altar, bring them back into their front state, send them home, so that that front state doesn't tell mom and dad, doesn't tell the teachers at school, doesn't tell all of those people. It has nothing to do with, in that ability, that in that version, they have abilities that they don't have in the other one. That is demonstrably false, right? There's MPD studies going way back that prove that that is not true. You can be compartmentalized from it, but to be completely disconnected from an ability is not possible. So that's where we agree, is that they have been doing that for a long time. MK Ultra is a very real thing. It's a well-documented thing. And there's also like a sub or an undocumented deeper level of it as well. And it all had to do with studying kids that were showing these abilities, studying humans, doing one of two things with them, either just exploiting that ability and then sending them home and trying to make them forget that they know how to do it, right? Which we tend to do to ourselves anyways, or employing them to work with them. But once again, like, these people can't go to outer space. Like, there is no outer space for you guys to be fighting your space battles in, period. So, you know, that's—
Can you go a little bit? I don't want to segue too far, but can you go a little bit into that? There is no outer space, and your perception of, like,
everything's holographic, so you're not actually like traveling. It's similar to what they show you in, like, say, Star Trek. You'd have to be broken down into code and then transferred to another planet and then deciphered on the other end. You wouldn't be able to just hop on a spaceship, go out there and start shooting things in space like Star Wars shows you. It's they show you that.
So Star Trek isn't ridiculous and totally makes sense, but Star Wars is ridiculous.
No,
Gotcha.
I used an aspect of both to make an example, right? So
personally, I think it's a little more ridiculous to say that it's holographic and that we're phasing into other planets than to say, I can see Mars, it's out there, and if I were to have a craft with the right propulsion systems, I could get there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you throw a bunch of gasoline in the back of that explodes, and you have to fit enough gas in it to get to the planet. So hopefully, you know, gas is cheap when they decide to do this, right? I think that's a little bit ridiculous to look at things that way. And I think it's also ridiculous to act like our government itself doesn't have craft that are capable of going to the moon and back and what have you and things like that.
And do objective reality at all? Like, I mean, they could barely shoot down a fucking weather balloon, dude. Come on now.
I think
there is a war going on our planet right now, which negates everything you guys say. Everything.
how does that negate that?
Because of the level of technology and the uses of that technology is all negated by what is happening on this planet right now. Out of one side of your guys' face, you'll say they're depopulating. On the other side, they're trafficking you as slaves in space. Those two are a paradox if you try to put them together, right? Just
Well,
like if they're fucking going to outer space and going to all these planets, why are all those people dying on this planet? Why aren't they using any of that technology? Why are they using the technology that is available as opposed to this technology that you guys allege is available? Right?
because the
There
technology is
absolutely no
suppressed.
outcome to your story. Whereas what I'm saying about it being holographic, there is science all over the fucking world to show you that. There are examples of that all over this fucking planet that show you that. Show me anything on your end. Anything at all. I've been waiting for years.
There's patents you can find on the internet for
show me the result of those patents.
I don't have
I could
millions of dollars
right now
to
and
go
put it on the internet. Doesn't make it real.
You got a good point, but I think that there's plenty of people who have seen these craft, who have been on these craft. And sure, Shane, you might be able to say to people that have not experienced these things that it's not real, but I've experienced things that I can't write off and I can't explain. Like, for instance,
I can't buy your experience because you have proven that you cannot interpret and represent reality correctly based on your emotional responses, and that you are willing to do things to get attention based on that. So how can I take what you say seriously? You've got this testimony that is basically thrown out by your character.
I disagree with that. What?
You admitted to it. Didn't you just apologize to me for it?
Yes, I apologize to you for being combative with you, for being upset with you.
Misrepresenting me and misinterpreting reality.
That's not what I apologize for. I don't agree with you on reality, and that's part of the reason why we're here. Okay? And that's why we're talking. You don't have to be upset about it.
You can't interpret reality, even when it's in text form in front of you. So why should I accept your interpretation of your dream states or your LSD trips?
That's
that to me.
That's I don't expect you to just accept what I say at face value. And I know that you especially aren't going to accept what I say at face value. But what I do want you to take into consideration is this isn't all just people having dreams and on LSD trips. There are shared memories. We aren't just there's instances where we can finish each other's sentences, where people will intentionally not give information away to see if the other person will remember the same thing, and they do. And when you experience this, it's very hard to write it off as all just somebody being delusional. And that's why I wanted to ask you and talk to you about, you talk a little bit about how, people talk about screen memories, people talk about implanted memories. I would argue that going into a VR, experiencing something that isn't real and then thinking it is real would be the definition of an implanted memory. And that's why I think that's somewhere we can meet, and somewhere where I'm obviously I don't agree with you, but I don't want to be a fool. I don't want to believe in something that's not real. So if I'm being lied to, if I've never been in space, if there's something deeper going on here, I don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and not listen to you. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about screen memories. I mean, do you think that these people in the community that are having memories that, I know a lot of you are saying we're just writing it as we go along, and sure, if you believe that, but do you think it's possible that we're getting the same screen memories implanted so that we all give the same story, which is apparently bullshit according to you, because obviously they don't want the real thing to come to light, right? I mean, that is basically what you're saying, right?
Well, if they've always got the scapegoat of it's aliens and something beyond your grasp, then of course they'll never have to suffer any consequences to what they're doing to hundreds of thousands of children all over the world, right? Makes sense. But yes, the difference between screen memory and implanted memory is simply dates and technology, right? If you've seen Clockwork Orange, that's a screen memory, right? Like that type of mind control. That's a screen memory, whereas an implanted memory would be a little bit probably, it's really just a terminology difference. They're the same thing. It's basically you've had your memory altered so that you believe something has happened that has not. And if you remember, like another one of the back and forths that had gone on there, you know, the false memory syndrome, right? That all is based on the same science, which is that every time
I don't think false memory syndrome is real. It's not real. It's not accepted. It's not accepted by the psych. It is not clinically accepted. It's not real. False memory syndrome is not real. Oh, it's not.
Once again,
you can look it up right now and you can see that it is not accepted. It has not been accepted by the psychological community at all. I don't give a fuck what you say. False memory syndrome is not real.
I have a degree in this. I'm going to have to disagree with the person who can't interpret and represent reality properly because they're emotional. Anyways, yes, it is real.
You don't need to. You don't need to be such a dick. That is how our
memory works.
You don't need. I've been nothing.
We bring that image back into this construct of our hippocampus.
Who's the one who's being emotional? Look at you, Shane. You're literally self-projecting yourself.
I'm laughing at you because this is
I'm not laughing at you. I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you. I haven't been disrespectful to you at all, but here you are being completely disrespectful like you always are, being a complete fucking asshole. I'm trying to give you a platform.
I'm just right. And you have a problem with that. When we remember something, we're bringing that back into a part of our brain that is called the hippocampus. While it is in the hippocampus, it is prone to rewrite. And that is exactly how suggested memory works. That is exactly how a screen or implanted memory would work. That is exactly how MK Ultra worked. That is exactly how fucking psychological manipulation works. That's how advertising works. That's how subliminal messaging works. Would you like some more explanations? Which one of us is being emotional? You will not look at reality because it doesn't fit your wants to believe.
I don't want to believe that I'm a part of this shit, dude. It sucks.
Like nobody wants videos. Close your channel.
I'm trying to get
help. Put your money where your mouth is. Close your channel. Stay away.
Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Because I want to help people and I want help myself.
You want attention.
That's not true.
Then close your channel for 6 months and then come back and help people.
That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. Close my channel for 6 months?
Yeah, prove to me that it's not just a need for attention and that you are capable of actually representing and interpreting reality correctly.
I'm not going to do that. I think that you're just posturing right now and you're being ridiculous. Like, come on. Like, I'm trying to heal from what happened to me. Whatever happened to me, something fucking happened, okay? And it's very traumatic. And I'm trying to heal from it. And the reason why we're here talking and why I talk to Joseph Powell, why I talk to any of the people you say are full of shit, is because I am trying to figure out what the fuck happened to me and what's real. Because my mind is being fucked with big time, super bad. And I'm tired of it. And I do want to fucking know what's real.
You need to produce those on YouTube. Why?
Because it's a resource for people to be able to find each other. I found a woman that's in these programs that looks just like me, and I'm pretty sure it's my fucking sister. There's things that
my face and
it's
put
a
my hair down and
resource.
look just like you too. Does that make us brothers, space brothers? If I shave my face and I put my hair down, I look just like you too. We have a very similar chin. You just can't see it because mine's covered with a beard. We both wear glasses. We have a similar shape to the face. I've got your hair. Does that prove anything?
It actually maybe does, but that's a whole nother fucking story. We're not going to go into that right now.
Your inability.
We're not going to go into that right now, Shane. The fact that we fucking look like each other.
It's making this impossible for me.
What's that?
Your inability to interpret and represent reality correctly makes this impossible for me.
Well, I would just think you're being an asshole personally, and I would like to, and if you don't want to accept that or whatever, can you please just, answer a few more questions and try to be cordial with me for the rest of this interview?
Sure.
Okay. So we touched a bit on implanted memories, and basically you're saying, that that's what all of this is all implanted memories. And we were taken out of school. I just want you to really, and I'm sorry if I'm like making you reiterate too much, but I think it will help me and both the viewers too. Like, what is the end game to this all? Why are they taking these kids out of school? They're trying to limit our abilities and then employ those who have them. That's what you said, right?
A little bit. It was all about taking the magic and turning it into technology, making everything technological so that they can control that. And basically, we are going through like kind of an evolution, and they knew that that was coming, and they've wanted to thwart that by making sure that they have an alternative, which is basically just mimicking everything nature is creating, presenting with technology. And that's how they take our attention away from our abilities and put it to other things. It's the same thing as religions, always having a savior, something you put outside of yourself so that you as an individual feel weak and powerless to everything, right? And that's the game that has been played over time. That's why they've hidden people's abilities. That's why they've done everything that they can to make that seem like just fiction, right? And that's also why they've implanted the thought that you guys are out in space fighting space aliens so that it sounds even more like fiction. Because all the other stuff that you've talked about like things like, finishing each other's sentences, feeling like you know each other, that's all regular human shit that has been going on forever. It's the same reason a dog knows when their owner is coming home. That's magic. That's our natural abilities. And that's what they're trying to hide with technology. And the more that they have this community of people out there talking about aliens and starseeds and all this other nonsense, which deters anybody from even looking at the rest, and definitely deters any type of investigation into like the actual use of the children in these programs, they're happy. And that's why they do it. And it's not just, people who are in the programs. They've basically done this with society through propaganda. The Little Green Man, through these like things like the X-Files, which I didn't watch until I was 30 because I was involved with when I was a kid, because I knew that that's what they were doing. Right? But that's exactly how it has worked. It's the same thing as the church used to do when they, used demons and angels to control people. And the priest was the only person who could talk to God, and you'd have to go through him. Well, this alternative community has been given the same type of gatekeepers, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That would be a good segue into like Corey Good, I guess. Like, he's definitely, and it's been one of those things where, God, it's been something else to watch, and that's another thing that we agree on more than we disagree on, but obviously there's still a lot to unpack there. But yeah, he presented himself as a space Jesus, if you will, in his videos before. But I've paid a little bit of attention to him, but he's not how I entered this community. But I just remember, and it's still there, you watch his videos, he says he's kind of like it's the space ambassador and only listen to him. And then of course he has his little retreats you can go on, and the guy's making money off this, hand over foot, and he has been for a long time. And my argument with the Corey Good guy is not once has he ever mentioned MK Ultra, not once has he ever mentioned the fact that they are raping and torturing kids to fracture their minds to create new pieces of consciousness that they can throw into clone bodies. He never talked about any of that stuff. He gave it a nice, pretty image. He talked about sphere beings, blue avians. And, I've always thought it was a bunch of bullshit too. But, obviously it's one of those things where you look at the community and you like I said, Penny Bradley, people like her compared to him, Corey Good, he's the guy that everyone's looking at. He is. And that is a problem. And I don't disagree with you, but the thing is to you, it's proof that this is all bullshit. And to me, it's proof that we have limited hangouts. We have people in the community who are trying to dissuade people. We have disinformationists. And, you literally are self-admitted disinformationists. You said that was your job in the programs. Yep. So, and you say
my job, if I was still doing that, would be to sell you on the secret space program. And so that's why I speak from the position I do on that.
And for me, it's like
what they wanted. I would be out there doing exactly what Corey was doing. Remember, that job was offered to me first. Right?
It is very interesting. No, definitely.
In the fucking result, dude. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there is proof to the reality here. And you don't want to look at that because it doesn't quite validate your version of the story. But
I
what
mean,
I'm
my
all
version of the story is I got
interpreted.
kidnapped out of school when I was a kid. I know I got tortured. I know I was at Montauk, and there's evidence. There's the cages. Preston Nichols showed it all. They were talking about time travel and shit. They weren't talking about figuring out how to use technology on people. I mean, can we go into that a little bit? Like, what about those guys? What about all the stuff they're talking about? Are you familiar with that at all?
Nonsense built on compounded nonsense by people who used to work with for the people that I do, right? Like, and that's the thing is, like, you guys aren't hearing me say that. I've been watching this community since 2006. I've been watching Project Camelot's birth, and I've been watching all of the nonsense get peddled by them. And then that gets splintered into Project Avalon. And that's going back to before you even knew any of this was going on, man.
I've been watching
And all of
those
that
videos for a long
let
time.
me finish, please, because all of that foundation has just been built on generation after generation. New wave of listeners just builds on the last one. But that foundation was always bullshit. So like Montauk, like there's nothing at Montauk. There's something near there in the general area of Montauk.
You can literally find a video
like,
of Preston Nichols going to the cages where they kept the children and explaining that's where they kept us.
also,
like you can find that.
No, you can't. Well, you can something that looks like that. I can also find Corey Good doing a bunch of stuff as well.
Bullshit.
Right? I can find
bullshit. He literally went there and showed the cages where the kids were held, and nobody listened. Nobody cared because it was all time travel and space aliens.
It's an animal testing facility. That's exactly what it is. How many things washed up on the shore of Montauk Beach over the 70s, 80s, and 90s? Lots, but you're too young to remember that.
I just think that it's one of the, I know about that, and I know about the chimeras and stuff they were making.
But yeah, that's got nothing to do with the cages, right? That doesn't explain the cages. No, they kept kids in them, and you were one of those kids. Come on, now. Yes.
Yeah, I 100%
logical leap.
Believe that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Well, no, I think that it's kind of one of those things where it's just.
And I'm not even denying that they keep kids in cages, because I know that they do. I just know that they don't at Montauk. And I know that all that whole Montauk myth is there to, again, hide what they're actually doing.
Which is kidnapping kids, you know. Let's be fucking real. Yes.
And a lot of raping kids, and a lot of torturing kids.
And a lot of satanic ritual abuse.
Would you like to see some scars? I could start showing you some scars, man. Yes, they do all of this stuff to kids. And yes, the majority of them don't have the vantage point that I have, because there's a certain percentage of us that don't get hypnotized and don't black out from things. Like my receptors for pain don't make me black out. It's really hard to even put me under an anesthetic for an operation if I need one, because my conscious mind just keeps fighting. And that's not unique to me. There's a very large percent, well, I shouldn't say a large percentage, but there's a percentage of human to which that's true. That's why I was able to remember the things the way that I do. I also fully understand that most don't. But how can
I also think that, like a lot of things I say, you have to put, I think with a lot of the things you say, it's a lot of like the things I say. You just have to trust that you're telling the truth. And I just think it's a little ridiculous that you act like you're not any different than me when it comes to the claims that we're making. Like, dude, you got to phase into a hologram to go to another planet? Okay, you can really prove that scientifically. Meanwhile, I can look out the window with a telescope and see Mars. But I'm the fucking crazy one for thinking that that would be the logical way to get there, is to just getting something and go there. Like,
no,
you know?
If you can take a telescope and you can see Mars, how come you can't see your spaceships having battles up there, Dick? Come on, man.
You can see it.
People
see shit all the time.
You cannot. No, you
okay,
cannot.
That's just a matter. People see stuff all the time.
You can't.
People see stuff all the time. You can even find videos. It's out there. You can see shit.
So this is the difference, is I do not constantly, on a regular basis, act emotionally and misrepresent you and reality. You do that.
I don't think I do that to you
and
either.
Therefore I can trust my experience, and I can't trust yours.
I can't trust your experience.
And I'm not asking you to. Did I invite you on my program to have a conversation with me? No, I didn't.
I still appreciate you talking with me. I do. I really appreciate it.
Like, can we just agree that we do not agree on this?
Yeah, there's some things that we don't agree on.
I'm going to let you believe that, but stop bothering me about it. Stop trying to misinterpret and misrepresent me because of your emotions.
You sound very emotional right now.
I am emotional because I'm pissed off that you keep misrepresenting and misinterpreting me. At least I'm admitting that
that's the reason why I have you on the show is so I'm not going to do that anymore. And there's really, I don't think I've misinterpreted you at all. You said that we you could fight us because we don't look like super soldiers.
Is that not true? Do you want to fight? Come
I
on, man, I'll
don't.
do it.
I don't. I think that I
No
appreciate
problem.
your
Dude,
humor in this
let's light
situation,
you
but
up and
no.
Matt up at the same time.
What?
Come on. That's what I mean. Like, that's a childish response from both of us. But I'm just responding to you in kind because you're like, mad what? Because I think I could. You can't fight. You can't fight.
No, this is the
You're not
reason.
a super soldier, man. It's a period. I'm sorry that that's true, but you're not.
So what? Why do I?
I'm fully willing to accept that you were involved in MK Ultra. I'm fully willing to accept that you've reprogrammed all those memories by taking LSD recreational and listening to people talk about aliens on the internet. But you're not a super soldier, and I could fight you to prove it. So where am I being an asshole in that? That's just the truth.
I don't think that's the truth at all. I think you're oversimplifying things. I think that I have implanted memories, and I when I talked to you on the phone, we touched on that a little bit, and you agreed with me that I probably had implanted memories. You didn't say,
Did I not just say that again? I said I'm willing to accept that. But once again, you're still not
but
going to
now
space
if I
and
took
fighting space
LSD and
aliens.
watched videos on the internet, it's one or the other. It can't be both, dude.
You're still not going to space and fighting space aliens, and you're not a super soldier.
Maybe I'm not. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. I believe that's happening to me. I believe that's happening to me, and I do not.
That is the entire point, though, right?
I do not want to believe that's happening to me. It doesn't make my life easy. It makes people think I'm crazy. It makes my life fucking terrible. To sit here and say that it makes like I want to do this and I'm doing this for attention. That's classic gaslighting, dude. I'm not doing this for attention. That's not why I'm here. That's like what they tell people of satanic ritual abuse, and the reason why they were saying, "Oh, I was brought to this place and used in this weird ritual with people in robes and blah blah." Because oh,
really
you want attention, that
like Corey Good. Because
what's
some
that?
people really do that, like Corey Good, right? Like, look at the Me Too movement. Are you telling me that every person was telling the truth? No, they weren't. Because that is true. People do that.
Yes,
and you
definitely.
have proven
100%.
yourself as capable of that. So it's a very logical assumption to think that that's still what you're doing, right?
To what I'm, excuse me, sorry. What am I doing?
You've proven that you are capable of misrepresenting and misinterpreting reality based on an emotional response and taking action to get attention based on that. So
I don't think that you keep saying that. That's just you saying something. That doesn't make it true, dude. You can keep saying it over and over again. That doesn't make it true.
Apologize for it. It's in text messages.
I apologize.
I can demonstrate it to everybody. It's in a long list of comments. You had multiple meltdowns, multiple temper tantrums on multiple sites that all prove what I'm saying is absolutely true.
I had an emotional response to what you were saying about us. I never disagreed with that. But the reason why I responded to you wasn't for attention. The reason why I responded to you is because I wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you right now. Like,
wanted my attention.
Yes.
Your own word.
Your own word. I wanted to have a conversation with you about this stuff. It's important. This isn't a joke to people. You can sit here and say, "Oh, sexy space stories, ha ha ha." You don't have to sit with your friends while they're fucking
though you
crying.
and I had a personal conversation and clarified that. You keep misinterpreting and misrepresenting what I said. You just did it.
What am I misinterpreting now? What am I misrepresenting now?
The sexy space stories are going to fucking space and fighting aliens. The sexy space stories are not kids getting raped in cages. Right? That is what I said.
There's stuff
right?
There's stuff like remembering.
Misrepresent that again, right? So there you
go.
Man.
I'm saying what's not a sexy. That's just you saying something. I'm not misrepresenting anything. When I have memories of having children and stuff like that, and being married, and memories of killing people and shit like that, that's not fun. It's not sexy. And I've just reiterated that so much. We don't have to keep going there. We don't have to fucking tumble that over and over again, but I just want to reiterate that for people experiencing this.
And that is what I said.
This is trauma.
Let me finish. I know that, and you know that. We agree on that, and that is what I said. But you misinterpreted and you misrepresented that because you were emotional to get my attention.
Whatever, man.
That is what you did.
Okay.
What you did.
Sure. No, that's what I did.
It is what you did. Not sure. That is what you did.
Okay. That's what I did. Sure. Whatever. I'll agree with you just to move on with the interview.
Would you like to read your own words? Because you admitted it. Would you like to read your own
we don't need to go over this. This is a waste of time.
Proof. Right, exactly. You don't want objective proof. That's right. I forgot about
That I
that.
react emotionally to things? You're reacting emotionally to things right now,
But am
dude.
I
It's called being a
misrepresenting
human
what you're
being.
saying? Am I misinterpreting what you're
I don't
saying?
think I
I'm not.
misrepresented or misinterpreted anything you said, dude.
You
I
absolutely
never admitted
did
to
again
that. I
with the
admitted to
sexy
being
story thing.
combative with you. I
You
apologize.
just did it again with the sexy story thing. You've done it multiple times in this conversation, at which points I have pointed it out. So yes, you have. You have done it in text message. You did it on YouTube. You did it on Facebook. You have done it on 5
I
sources.
think we still have a chance to have a conversation here if you keep trying to just, if you can just maybe move on from this. Like, there's still stuff we can talk about. Okay.
Absolutely, but like I don't want to just skirt over the fact that you don't want to admit to reality and continue to talk about your interpretations of reality when you don't want to represent it correctly. Why would I do that? Why should anyone listen to you do that?
Listen to me do what? Say my side of the story, my opinion on things, and what my experiences
Incapable
are,
of
and how.
interpreting reality, if you're incapable of interpreting any words said to you and representing those correctly, then how are we supposed to believe your dreams?
First of all, you're calling them dreams. They're not dreams.
They
Okay.
are. What else are they? Where are you getting this?
I'm entertaining. I'm trying to entertain your theory, but what I want is more evidence, more proof. I want to talk about it
I'm trying
more.
to entertain your theory. So you go ahead and you tell me how you got this memory back. In what form did this memory come back to you?
Of being in the secret space programs.
Yes.
Basically, I realized that when I was a kid, okay, when I was in school, I had a friend, and I'd seen a UFO before, he'd seen one, and we've heard about the whole concept of getting abducted by aliens and stuff like that. So I did this thing where I was like, the automatic writing, and I must have been like 9, 10, 11, right? And I saw flashes before my eyes of like, an alien in my face and them peering into my soul and all this stuff. I freaked the fuck out when this happened, man. I was like screaming, and I was just like hanging out with my friend in his room when I was like 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. I was a young kid, not a child though, but I was getting older. And that after that, I couldn't be alone at all. I couldn't be. I was super just. Every time I went outside, because my dad lived across the street, even just going across the street, it was just scary as fuck for me. And that's paired with just, even before I got the memories back, of just having fears of being taken and stuff like that. And anyway, I had a thing happen not that long ago where I was hanging out with my childhood friend that I actually sat with and freaked out or whatever. And I hadn't seen him for years. And his mom just asked me, what did something really happen to you when you were a kid? And dude, I hadn't thought about this for years. It's like, and what I said to her was, I think something did, but I don't know what I could do about it. So I just don't go there. And she's like, okay, that makes sense or whatever. Anyway, fast forward, I had this dream about, I was hanging out in a room, right? It was like a white, and yes, it is a dream. I know it's like a little smirk there. I'm totally willing to admit that this is a dream. But I had this dream, and it was in a white, it was like a lecture hall, where a teacher would lecture you, kind of. It was all really white, really weird. And keep in mind that I've been looking into UFOs for a long time, and when I found that the secret space program stuff, I always thought it was ridiculous. I never could take it seriously. I always thought that
Thank you for proving my point. I'm going to end this conversation.
Can I please? Can you please just let me finish?
It with the other people who also don't want to listen to your objective reality coming out of your mouth. You've programmed yourself with nonsense because something happened to you when you were a kid. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Can you let me finish the story?
Your secret space program stories anymore, man. I'm really not.
Well, I don't want you to entertain it. I want you to explain where the memories come from and why I have them. Maybe, I think you can help me with that.
For you. All I could say is that you went through some trauma when you were a kid, and you have, as an adult, put that into the secret space program world because it's available, and that's what people do. Everyone does it. If you hadn't been exposed to that, it would have been something else. If you had been brought into a church, it would have been angels and demons, but it's not. It's aliens, clones, and all of that other nonsense. And maybe you were part of MK Ultra, and maybe you were taken, but even still, all that other nonsense wasn't there. Either way, I don't want to listen to you trying to justify to me that some type of secret space program exists anymore based on the baseline you've presented within this conversation.
I don't want to justify it to you. I just want to say that I had a memory of a military dude teaching me shit with a blurred face. When I noticed the faces were blurred, I woke up. That's the memory. And it freaked me the fuck out. It made me look into what was going on because I wanted to figure out what actually happened to me and why I would have a memory like that. And I found this reluctantly, whether you want to believe it is or not. And I would admit, I'm fully willing to admit that human beings are going to look for explanations. And I'm trying to literally look for the most logical explanation to what happened to me. And for me, this has been the conclusion that I've come to, and it hasn't been an easy conclusion to come to. But I don't want to sit here and tell you the secret space program is real anymore, or have you explained to me that it's not. I understand that it's kind of a frustrating back and forth, and I don't want to just waste your time. Okay, I apologize for that, but I do still have some questions for you that don't have anything to do with that. So I was wondering if you would maybe entertain just a couple more questions.
Sure. Can I share a story with you first before we get there?
100%. I would love that, because I want more from you, man. I want you. I appreciate
it's on the same
you being
type of
here.
topic. It's on the same type of topic, right? It's actually quite similar. So when I was, I guess, 6, so I was raised by a stepdad. I didn't really know my biological father. I guess when I was 6, I barely remember this. I have vague memories of it, but he had told my mother he was dying, wanted to see me, had talked her into letting him take me for a weekend. And, he was in and out of jail. He was an abusive, terrible person, right? And so what I remembered was being locked in the back of a car in the dark, and not knowing what was going on and freaking the fuck out. And when I was about 14, this someone I was close to, who happens to be a celebrity, Brandon Lee, had died. And the last movie he was in was A Crow, and you remember the faceplate of the crow, right? So I'm sitting there, and I had just smoked a joint with my stepdad. He's telling me the story of when I was 6 and that incident happened, and he was asking me what it was that freaked me out so bad. And when he asked me, what I remembered was being in the back of the car and looking out the window and seeing Brandon Lee's face come to the window like this. And that's what I remembered at that moment. Objectively, I know that that's not what freaked me out, that it was probably someone else's face that was doing something. And I would much rather remember that as Brandon Lee's face than that other person's face. But that's the way that it came back to me as a memory, right? And the reason why it had done that is because it was clear and present in my mind, that trauma with Brandon. And then I had some other type of trauma reminder, right? And my hippocampus, which is a part of my brain, slapped those two together on me really quickly. And if I didn't,
I think that's a great point, and I think you're right. And I think that, I've rated this before. Like, I can't say that all my memories are 100% factual if screen memories exist. I just think that there's more to it than like people making up stories. I think that there's connected memories, and I think that they're being implanted from some source. And I thought maybe you'd explain that is happening, that they're doing it through their phones somehow or something. I mean, you think of an advertisement,
right? Yeah, and sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off this time, but that's, aside from the propaganda, right? There is I know this community calls it like a voice to skull type of technology, right? The idea that our mind picks up resonances that aren't necessarily words and images, right? And computes that and translates it into words and images, so that we know that technology exists. We know that can work. And that's what I wrote in that Avians blog, which got me in all this trouble about Corey, was that the stuff that he was even reporting sounded like the program that they were putting out through that to a bunch of people that I knew who had worked on that. Right. And so that is kind of what I had said and why I had said it. So there's a layer of that's going on. And like a lot of people who, don't even listen to this community or have any type of trauma in their life or really any reason to have these type of dreams too. Right.
Yeah.
And also have conflicting, maybe not even dreams. Maybe dreams is the wrong word. Sometimes it could be like a vision.
Yeah.
What I mean is it's not something that's like physically playing it in front of them. It's like a flash of memory or a flash of an image or a flash of a feeling or something like that, right? So that was what I was trying to get to about like, how did you get this memory back? It's like, you know, it is coming in these flashes because that's how they're implanted, right? But at the same time, that is something that everyone is also, you know, dealing with, and that technology has also changed over time. And I know that that is even like, you know, by my own standards, crazy to say, but that's my only honest answer. And it's not, you know, it's not what makes me popular, and it definitely doesn't get me attention. It gets me a lot of hate for having said this, right? So it's not, you know, that's also why I'm establishing that baseline. But the bottom line being that, you know, I pick up on that stuff too, right? I know what it is. I could probably tune into it right now if I wanted to, because I have that ability to switch my perception, right? It's there, and a lot of people are picking up on that, and a lot of that has to do with what's going on in society right now. I mean, look at what just went on last week with like all the UFO, UPA, whatever you want to fucking call them these days, right? Like this distraction that they're rolling out in the public. And the other side is like the same community has been talking about a false flag alien, you know what I mean? So it's like, well, which of these things is true? Again,
disclosure's coming. It's coming on this specific date at this specific time. And
exactly. And all of those people, and this is why, like, and I'm not, this is why I know it feels personal, but I don't really intend it to be. But like those people present themselves the same way you would though, man, right? They would be just as sure of themselves as you are when they're saying that stuff. And I've been watching this for a long time. So if I'm like maybe short-tempered or like a little bit intolerant towards it at this point, that's why, because I've been listening to that for years now, right? And I do know firsthand that that is not real. And I do know that I can't prove that to you, right? And that puts me in a position where I do kind of react emotionally because I feel bad. Like the whole reason we ever started talking is because I can like I said, man, like if I shaved my face and I put my hair down, we look a lot alike. Like I could actually like identify you like a younger version of me or like a younger brother type person. I think as like, if we were just two dudes hanging out, we'd probably get along really well. You know what I mean? And so I felt like I hurt you and I didn't like that. And so I reached out to you personally to get to that bottom of that. But again, like I'm not going to at the same time try to, yeah, if I was going to support the secret space program, I would like to get paid for it. And I gave up that opportunity.
Shit, I would too if I was, I mean, if these memories are real and what I'm going through, they should be fucking paying me, but that's a whole nother story. It's hell. But no,
I'm not speaking out of my ass.
I agree with you.
Stuff in there too, right?
I have to be the bigger man here and agree with you that like, I think that memory can be a tricky thing, and clearly it can be fucked with. And I just think that we have to be careful because I think that can be a convenient cover for when abuse does occur, when groups are hurting children, what have you. It doesn't have to be children, it can be adults too. It's a convenient cover to say, oh, well, they're just making it up. It's all fake. And it's kind of like what you're saying. We're both saying the same thing. We're like the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. Like I'm saying what you're saying is a cover, and you're saying what I'm saying is a cover. And I just think that whatever the fuck is going on, it's deep, it's multi-generational, and it is mind control. Our minds are being controlled. And you can see it all around you. I mean, it's not obvious. They do it right in the open. It's not like they hide it from us. They just figure the stupid people will be stupid and the smart people will you know, try to avoid it. But it is what it is. But it's there. And I just think that my opinion, and I don't want to assert it as fact to other people. I think people need to make their own opinions. But my opinion is for the bottle of mind control is to make us think that we are the only fucking people out in the universe, that we are the center of the universe, that God is out there and Sky Daddy's going to come save us and Jesus is going to come. All these things. It's a distraction. And the one thing we can agree on is that people are being fucking distracted, and I think that's why I'm, you know, emotional reactions, what have you aside, I think that we can talk down and admit that we're being distracted, and we have a community of people who, God forbid, we were able to talk to like get on the same page and get some work done and get the truth out there, the real information to benefit humanity in some way. And I think no matter what you believe, no matter what side of the coin you're on, secret space programs, implanted memories, or it's real or whatever, we all recognize that we are being manipulated, and we all feel hurt by the fact that we know things could be so much better than what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that hurt is real. And that's one thing I've said about it. It's like, I actually just had this conversation with someone else. Like an implanted memory and a real memory doesn't feel any different to me. And I know the difference, right? Like you talked about, you know, having memories or thoughts about killing someone where you haven't killed someone. I've been through simulations where I've had to kill people. And to me, like my emotional response is like, I feel like I've killed someone, you know, like I carry a guilt for a fucking
So in the
imaginary
programs,
person, you know what I mean?
programs, they never made you kill anyone. They never made you kill any little animals or rape anyone or do anything like that.
No, when, not for real. I mean, killing
Because
animals.
that just seems like a really good cover up for the fact that this shit is happening. Like it's all in VR. Like if there are kids being raped, that's not in VR. That's not virtual reality.
That's not, but that's a different thing too, right? Like,
Okay.
like human trafficking is happening. We all know it's happening, right? Like it's mainstream news at this point, right? Going so deep as connecting the two is maybe a stretch, but at the same time, you know, yeah, that's one aspect of it. And this is the thing too, is like, you know, there are people not involved with MK Ultra who get raped. You know, like I have a very good friend who every Thursday night for her entire childhood, she was chained to a pool table by her dad while her dad and his poker buddies ran a train on her.
It's terrible.
And that had nothing to do with MK Ultra. That was just a shitty person doing shitty things, right? So it exists in all ways. It's not, so like I'm obviously not denying.
I'm just saying, like, and I don't want you like to get all hurt that, or like that I'm trying to make you believe what I believe, but I believe that they are doing this in the programs, that the sodomization of young boys has been used as a technique to create and fracture altars that are used in programs for mind control, and it's ancient. It's not new.
Absolutely.
They've just gotten better at it. They do use the VR in these programs.
Yeah.
They use it. They show you images of things happening that, as a child, put you into that fracturing state much easier. But as far as for you to tell me, you know, the entirety of the secret space program is all in, you go in a dumb, you walk out and it's like a holodeck. I've heard what you say. Man, I have to keep my mind open to the possibility of it, but
that was one of the examples I gave. But yes.
Yeah, but right. Like it's just, I'm just not able to, you know, drink that cup of tea yet. Like I have to see a lot more.
They do it in the mainstream world, man. Like we do this in civilian life to people, right? We run the same type of psychological simulations on people and talk about it in Vice magazine. So why would they not have done it in these programs, right?
Yeah, you got a good point. I just think that it's, you know, some of the things that bother me that I can't, it makes me uncomfortable. But it's like, and I don't mean to like, I'm not claiming anything, but like, how are you to know that you remember every little thing that happened to you? You talk about it like getting pulled out in your underwear, like it's not happening to anyone. I think this is happening to
why
people.
Why would I want to remember all of that? Right? Seriously.
Well, it's like Preston Nichols said. Why would anybody want to remember their own little horror world? That's what Preston Nichols was asked when he.
And I have to remember all of it. So please don't. You know, like, please just don't. Like the fact that I do remember all of it puts me at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to the traumatic response in a certain way. Don't you think? Like, I don't have a question as to whether or not it happened. I know it happened. I know who did it. I had to interact with that person on a regular basis after they did it. Right? Like I've been passed around by people who are celebrities, who I have to interact with and listen to people talk about in coffee shops.
So I'm just like, I understand, but you're saying that didn't happen to me.
I'm not saying it didn't happen to you. I'm saying it had nothing to do with outer space. Right? If you were celebrity X and you grabbed a kid and you butt fucked him for 6 hours, would you rather him imagine or remember you butt fucking him for 6 hours or going to space for 6 hours? Which would you prefer? Right?
No, I understand, but I will say that I have memories of I have memories of things that I don't want to remember them, that have to do with the sexual torture, that have to do with all that shit. And some of them are shit that you say isn't real. Like I remember the Crawford School for Young Girls in England. I remember that, and you can tell me this isn't real, whatever, man. I remember that they would keep assets in that school on purpose. And another thing is that when we would do rituals at Montauk, Preston would send us in through portals to get these girls and bring them back. And I remember that he would, don't bother mind wiping them. No one will believe them anyway, he said. I remember that. And putting these poor girls back after they got brought to Montauk to get fucking gang raped in some fucking ritual. Preston Nichols would bring his dog and shit. Like, and then I also remember that to reward the Montauk boys when they're good, he'd let us portal into that school and rape those poor girls. Like, that's not memories that I like having. If that, I would really love for that to not fucking be real, Shane. Like, that'd be pretty fucking awesome.
Well, then know that the people who have put those ideas into your head are known liars. And you've just, like you said, you already admit that you understand how the memory can rewrite itself, and that they've allowed you to rewrite. Like a lot of these people do that to people on purpose, where they're like, oh yeah, I remember you from that program. You were in this place at this time with that time. I hear it all the time, man. I've heard it like doing mainstream therapy with people not connected to the alternative community, where I shouldn't name her, a very prominent speaker in the secret space program community, no one I've ever spoken to directly, just in case anyone's listening, was named by someone in a hospital, like at CAMH in Toronto, because they had a session with that woman, and that woman convinced them that they were in the secret space program, when the truth of the matter was that their dad used to use them as a party favor, right? So it's like, I know it's not sexy, but at the same time, it's easier for you to believe you were at Montauk than probably whatever the truth would have been, right? If it were like, say, someone you cared about, someone close to you, someone you had looked up to at the time. It's much easier to think it was MK Ultra at Montauk than it was my dad, right? And if you don't think that doesn't happen, it does, right? And I'm not saying that that's true for you, but that's the problem here, right? Is for every one person who is telling the truth, there's probably a dozen people who are definitely not, right? And where I can tell the difference, because of my experience with it, is when they start talking about going to outer space. When I hear that,
I just saw an orb, dude, float up in front of you.
It was a car driving by.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that. Sometimes things aren't as they seem. Isn't that what we're talking about right now?
There's a window right there, and a car had just driven that way. I was actually looking at it at the time. But yeah, that's, there's a little bit of both going on here. And, for me, the proof is in the result. The stuff that I have said going back 10 years now is all mainstream right now, right? Like, that's why I've been a little bit more comfortable talking about the use of VR with MK Ultra and stuff like that, because they're using it in the mainstream world right now, right? These neural imaging softwares, they're using in the real world right now. Holographically implanting memories, they're doing in the real world right now, right? It's not even in programs or underground bases anymore. So, and which was something my blog actually predicted would happen back in 2016, was by about now, all of that stuff would be mainstream. And I said in a podcast back there that if, we don't have the disclosure that everyone's talking about by 2018, then I think it's about time for all the secret space program people to pack up shop and start looking at what actually happened, which is that they went through the regular MK Ultra just like the rest of us, and that they've been led to believe a bunch of nonsense. Because one thing I know is, like, the lie, like to quote Richard Hoagland, the lie is different at every level. I spent my entire life finding out that what I just believed for the last 3 years was complete bullshit. Right? It's like Scientology, where it's not until you get to the top level that you find out about Xeno. It's very similar when you go through there. Like, when my first belief structure was like, I think there was something like 13 or 14 different ET races controlling humanity. And then eventually I realized, was told, no, it's only about 4. And then I'm like, no, it's actually 5. And then eventually it was none, you know what I mean? And it was like the culmination of all of that experience where I finally came up with my own conclusion, not what I was told, right? What I know of beyond fact is I have seen countless occurrences of them implanting space-based memories into people. I have seen 0 occurrences of them sending human beings to space.
So have you interacted with Draco or any ET, or have you ever been on other planets or on ships? No.
I've thought I was, like, I've been through simulations. I spent a long time, actually, when I was quite young. It was all underwater, but when I looked out the window, I thought it was space. And I didn't find out until probably about 10 years later that I wasn't actually in outer space. I believed it.
So I remembered watching an interview with you at one point. I don't remember which it was, but I could have sworn that you said that you had interacted with the Draco and that you were used at one point to interact with ET.
I said no to the spaceship thing. I've never been on a spaceship. I've never been to outer space.
But you've interacted. So like on the surface of Earth, you've interacted with aliens.
Yes. Well.
Okay.
I've under the surface of Earth, as we would say. Yes.
So
on this.
Okay. I think that's an important thing to point out. That like, it seems like things that are true, like the fact that the Draco are real, the fact that they are aliens, blue, like if they're blue and they're here to save us all and shit, that's probably not true. But the fact is that these beings do exist. I think that some people might be a little confused by that, but that's something that you've been able to reiterate here is like, you're not saying there isn't life on other planets. You're not saying we're alone in the universe. You're just saying that the way that things operate is completely different than, well, especially the secret space program type people are saying.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not denying that there's aliens. I'm just saying that our interaction with them is not what these people are reporting. We're not sending humans to other planets to fight wars or fighting anyone in underground bases on Mars or any of that type of nonsense that comes along with it. Human history goes back way further, and our technology has been way more advanced than it is today. Something that the mainstream world is actually kind of starting to catch up to, or at least somewhat admit. And a lot of that did have to do with this history having a prior experiences with ETs, right? And so all I'm saying is the people in control right now are not doing the things that a lot of the SSP community are saying that they are. There's no Dark Fleet, there's no Alliance Fleet, there's no any of those fleets out there fighting space battles. There's nothing going on between the Nazis and the fucking betas.
Have you ever heard of the
all that kind of stuff is the stuff I'm saying isn't happening.
Have you heard about the leak? I believe the man's name is Derek McMillan. And basically, it was a leak. It was like a WikiLeaks type deal, and he hacked, the government's computers, and he found information on Solar Warden.
When he found Solar Warden,
yeah,
which is
Solar
Space
Warden
Force today. That's Space Force today. It's a satellite system for weapons. Satellites.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's what it's always been. And of course, at that time, we didn't know, and it was classified. And people took a name.
That's not the way he worded it. He said that
because they were saying non-terrestrial, right? But the non-terrestrial also means water, right? A non-terrestrial is also a submarine is a non-terrestrial vehicle, and non-terrestrial personnel are people who work on submarines. So it didn't need to mean what the alternative community made it mean. But a lot of conferences, and again, that's going back to like, when was that? Like the 80s or 90s, right? Mm-hmm. Before the internet was there, and it was conferences that were really driving the show back then. And all those conferences, as we know today, were mostly funded by the CIA and the FBI and all the people also perpetuating MKUltra experiences, right? So
the people that I'm familiar with from like that era, and like I said, like the secret space program stuff, it kind of did strike me as, okay, like I kind of found it hard to believe, but I did believe that I had experiences. Some of the people that I really liked, Dr. David Jacobs. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Dr. Carla Turner. I was just interested if you knew them, because they don't talk about, neither one of them ever said anything about secret space programs or anything like that. And it was very, especially with Dr. David Jacobs, it was very empirical research, he basically would interview different abductees, and he wouldn't even consider their testimony unless it matched up with somebody else that he already talked to. And his conclusion was that there's a hybridization program with these gray aliens, and he didn't make a conclusion of why or anything like that. He just said it's really alarming, whatever is going on. He's still alive, but I'm just curious, what is your opinion on that? Like, do you think that program's real? Do you think that there's like the Zetas hybridizing with humans and stuff like that? Do you think that that's actually happening, or do you think that's some more like SSP poppycock shit or something?
I think it's again a situation where, you know, blaming that on some mythological ET is a good way to cover up the fact that they've been messing with our genetics, right? Like that's a lot of what the new I call it a lollipop, those things that they're giving people due to that alleged illness going around, right? That type of genetic rewriting is the hybridization program. It is turning us into basically a new version of humans, like actually altering our genetics. And it started environmentally with like, you know, phthalates and a bunch of other, I'm not a chemist, so I couldn't rattle off all the chemicals, but it started on a chemical level, you know, getting women on birth control, getting, you know, all these different things, different programs going on, the plastics, the shit in the air, the shit in the water, all of it, soy, all of the above, right? Was all, that's the hybridization program. It's actually altering us, and it's real. I mean, we can actually see it on planet Earth right now. And that's what this split is in humanity that's going on right now, where it's almost like, you know, you've got basically cyborgs, right? Like a lot of people are at least partially cybernetic today, right? And increasingly so as we move forward. And as happens with organs, right? Like if I donated, you know, you have to have specific markers in order to accept a donated organ, right? Or your body will reject it. Same is true with technology and implants, right? I actually have one in my foot that my body continually tries to fight out. And it causes a lot of pain, and that's my body trying to reject it. The same would be true for anything else that they plan on putting into us. Neuralink, Google Eye, or the eyesight is the one that Apple's making. All of these different enhancements that they have planned for humans all require our genetics to be altered, which is hybridization, right? And so once again, just putting that out of reach story on top of what humans are doing is very true.
Well, there's like there's the aspect of it where women will like get pregnant, and then they'll, you know, like remember being on a spaceship or whatever, whether that's memory is real or not. But they're taking whatever, it's aliens or whatever, they're taking the fetus from women.
Yeah,
they're like getting them
that was
pregnant and
happening
then
a
taking
lot during the 80s and 90s and early 2000s.
big time. Yes.
Yeah. And now it's happening to the entire public, which is also, you know, kind of what I've been saying, is all the stuff that was going on in programs was all meant to be brought into the public, and now is. And that's where the proof comes in the result. Okay.
What are your thoughts on clone aid? You ever hear about that?
Well, like cloning facilities are something I'm familiar with. I'm not clone aid. I don't know the name, but
well, I remember growing up in the 90s, they basically were like, it was all over the news that they cloned a sheep, and then they're going to clone a human. Yeah, then they're going to clone a human, and they claimed, I don't want to say wrong because it's so long ago, but I swear I almost remember that they like claimed they were either they did clone a human and they did it successfully, or they're going to. But basically, it seemed like the news stopped talking about it, and my perception of it is that it's all been shut down. But people are saying it's still around. They're saying there are clones, and you've got
as designer babies.
Yeah, there's like celebrities and stuff like that saying that they have clones all the time in interviews. People are thinking they're joking. Like, I don't know, like I want to keep my mind open to like that maybe there aren't clones and maybe it's all bullshit, and I want to like believe the truth. Like, and if that's not true, the programming goes deep for me and I have to have a lot of work to do. But like, I do think there's evidence if you look. Like, I think there is
I
evidence.
absolutely believe that they've cloned us. Yeah, like I've talked about that openly as well. Cloning, the way that Donald Marshall presents it as like a form of entertainment, is a real thing, right?
Who's Donald Marshall? I'm not familiar with him.
He was a whistleblower. who claimed involvement with what he called cloning facilities, which were basically like underground facilities where they were like manufacture genetic clones and then basically move your soul out of your body and put it into a clone and then torture you and do a bunch of shit to you and then like put you back.
Yeah.
Right.
So why would they do that to people, just for entertainment? Like,
Yes, exactly. Like
that's pretty fucking sick. I'm not saying it's not possible.
no, it is
but,
very fucking sick. But
yeah, like people
is everything else
are
that they're doing,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
I just, I think there might be more to the story than that. But I like
There is. That's what I mean. Like it's basically like, so the super soldier program is obviously something that was real. The idea being to try and push the human body to its absolute potential. Bottom line is the human body can only get pushed so far, right? And then we move into robots, which is where we're going now. So the cloning experiments were to see how far we could push that. And I mean, in North America, this sounds like science fiction, but if you go to China, it's not, right? Like they do clone people in China. They have cloned people in China. They have genetically enhanced people in China. They are rolling out artificial wombs and all of that type of stuff there. And that's all the fruits of what we call the cloning program.
I'm glad that we touched on that. So, because it's like with a lot of this stuff, if people don't look deeply into what you're saying enough, they might think that you're saying it's not real at all. It's total fiction. But normally, that's not the case. It's not that you're saying it isn't real. It's saying that people's perception of it is flawed.
It's the representation and the interpretation of it that ends up being flawed. And that happens because there is this, and I'm sorry, but like this story of aliens is a lot more attractive than the reality, right? The fact that this is humans doing this to humans and humans being shitty humans doesn't sound nearly as nice as shitty aliens, right?
Yeah. Well, I've most of my memories are of shitty humans doing stuff to me. There's not many of aliens, but yeah, I don't know. I think we did a good job covering most of the stuff that we wanted to talk about. I guess my maybe like one last question, like you've been in several programs. You said one of them was kind of like going around and kind of like getting information on paranormal type activity, like and then basically like you thought like you were told that you're going to disclose it, and then at the end of it all, it's like, actually, no, we're going to use this all. Thank you. We're going to use your information to cover all this shit up.
Oh, and by the way, making a TV show, which we've been putting out, which totally makes what you're doing seem absurd to the general public. That was the other kick in the nuts, was finding out what they were rolling out into the public at the same time. It's the same thing as like, their portrayal of magic in movies being a little bit over the top so that we don't believe it, right? And so that we
I agree with that 100%. And I would argue with I would think that for me it'd make a great point of that's why being in space, being with aliens, fighting in battles, clones, all the shit seems ridiculous to us. It doesn't mean that it can't be real. And that's been my argument from the beginning. But I didn't have you on the show to try to get you to believe what I'm saying. I actually more had you on the show to try to get my head wrapped around what you're saying better, because I've only been able to get what you've told other people and the interviews that you've done with other people, and they're not always asking like the questions that I have myself. And I appreciate you sitting down with me and actually letting me ask these questions, especially considering that I know that I frustrated you at one point, and like I said, we didn't exactly get off on a great foot, but I think that this was great. I'm sorry if that again you got frustrated, but I really did try to be patient with you, cordial with you, and respectful towards you and what you had to say. I think that we need more of that in this community. Because is it even a community? I don't know. Nobody can even agree on fucking anything. But I think that if we sat down and talked more, instead of asserting that we're correct, because I have to be able to admit that I can be wrong. I think that it's better to give people like the ability to decide for themselves, and that's what I try to do here. And I hope even you can agree I did a fairly good job I'm sorry if I faltered at all on that, but I tried.
That was none of your fault at all. That was my own point in this, right? It's just that it's hard for me to have a conversation with someone who's giving me that story because I know too well, right? It's like it's almost like, for me, speaking to a lot of other people in this community is probably equivalent to a lot of the other people in this community talking to the regular person on the street who knows nothing about any of this stuff.
That's
right? There's almost like a level gap of just information, but I have a lot of empathy and I like people. So there's like a part of it that, like, it, as an example, my frustration isn't necessarily frustration with you. It's actually frustration with the story. It's frustration with the lore. It's frustration with the interpretation and with that, because I do know firsthand where it comes from, and that upsets me, right? Because, like I said, I have no problem accepting or even believing that you went through something as a kid, right? And you do have every right to know exactly what has been done to you. And it offends me that, maybe not you, but I'm going to use you as the example. So if I hear you believe it's something that I know that it's not, I have an emotional response to that. I really do. Like, it's almost like I get offended, and that's on your behalf, because I kind of wish I could, give you a day in my head, let you see through my memories so you could see that, because I know that that would help you. And I have a lot of experience of watching people run around in this SSP community and never help themselves. Right? Most people I know who do kind of come to terms with that end up moving forward and getting some healing out of the end of the deal. That's more proof in the result for me. So that's where my emotional response to you came from, is like, it's like I have this problem, this trigger where I get defensive of people, and I don't iterate it quite clearly and thank you for making me do that like the bottom line here is there is a lot of abuse and horrible fucking things being done to humans.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that, and I think that what we need to do is just we have to keep talking. I wish that I don't think the division in this community helps anyone. You get on I'm just being blunt here. You get on a show and you say, by the way, you guys, you're all fucking delusional. Like, come on. Like, obviously that's going to get some feathers ruffled, and you did.
But again, that's not what I said, and that's why I kept saying the interpretation and the representation is off.
And I don't mean to misrepresent you. I'm sorry, but you basically
you do, right? And that's not a fault of yours. That doesn't make you a bad guy. It's just emotional response, right? But that is what has happened in those situations, like the DID comment, right? Like, if you just look at what I said objectively and don't take it personally, there was no need for that entire blow up, right? It's actually a comment in defense of someone like yourself who has DID, because there's a lot of people out there who claim that they do that don't. All right. And it's getting to the point where, police, doctors even are turning their nose up at people who say that they have it, because of the amount of people out there who have self-diagnosed and run around the internet saying that they do.
Yeah, I think I just think that's a dangerous road to go down, because there are people who do have it.
Exactly.
And it's like the same thing with a lot of things. Like, it becomes popular, and people for some reason want to be a part of the community, and it's kind of bizarre behavior,
but that's not how you interpreted my comment. Right? That is what my comment said, but that's not how you interpret it, because you were hearing it through this lens of emotion of, this guy thinks my stories are bullshit. Right?
Yeah.
and that's what I mean, man. Like, that's all I'm really trying to point out by repeating all of that, is that happens. We're all guilty of doing that. It's not just you. We all do that. That's why the trivia method is important, so that we can make sure we're not doing stuff like that to the best of our ability. Because if you just objectively look at what I said, there was no need for all of that. You took it the way you did because you thought I was saying something I wasn't, right? But that's the example of why that type of thing is a problem. And yeah, why we talk to each other, right? Like, I didn't watch that whole video of ruining the ruiner that you made, but I watched enough of it to go, like, I need to tell this guy that I'm sorry, and that he's not like he maybe didn't hear me say something. But in that conversation, it wasn't that I didn't say the things that you needed to hear. It was, I was talking and I said something and you started hearing beep while I was explaining it. And so once that beep was gone, you could listen to my explanation. But while that beep was there, you couldn't, right? And that's just human. And that's the problem. So once again, it wasn't that I wasn't saying, it was just that you weren't able to interpret it correctly because of the emotional response. That is why I keep pointing that out, not because I think you're a bad person because you do that. We all do that in some ways, but that is what has happened. Objectively, what I said is not how you interpret it.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, like, that doesn't mean that, like, I don't know, man. I kind of resent that you say I'm doing this all for attention. I'm not doing this for attention. It's caused more negative attention towards me than anything. I've admitted to doing things that are pretty fucking terrible, and from the get-go. And I just kind of resent that. Like, yes, I wanted your attention. I wanted you to talk to me. I wanted this conversation to be had because it's extremely important. But that's what this all is to me. It's sure, okay, maybe I do want attention, but it's not just for the sake of attention. I want attention on this issue. This is an issue that's affecting people's lives. I deal with trauma. I have PTSD from it. It's not cool. And people deserve to know what reality is. And that's why we sat down on this conversation, is because it's better to talk about it and say what the differences are, and then, you know, people can reach their own conclusions. And, you know, for me, like, I think you did a really good job of saying what you needed to say, and you answered my questions really well. There's still stuff I could ask you, but I want to keep you forever. I am kind of curious about the Matrix simulation that you talk about a little bit, but we don't have to talk about that. It is interesting stuff, though. You can look up his videos. Shane the Runer, I believe it is on YouTube, the Runer author. He touches on it's fascinating stuff. We could spend a whole nother 30 minutes talking about it, and I don't want to waste any more of your time, but people should look into that. It's just kind of, Shane talks about how we are living in a simulation. Would that be correct?
Yes. And yeah, that's you know, and I take a stance with that, where it doesn't matter whether anyone agrees or disagrees or believes it. I think that what we're dealing with is going to be the same either way. And, you know, in that particular case, and I reiterate this many times in the video, that it's something that I said because too many people had come to me with it. Right. So I just wanted to kind of speak.
I think there's something there. I found all those videos really interesting. I think I watched all of them. You had more than one. And that's something I wanted to talk about a little bit, but like, because I think it might have a connection to whatever is happening to us. But I think that people can find your videos and look into it on their own. You're not the only person who's talked about this. But yeah, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. And I think this went pretty good. I mean, could have went worse, right? So
absolutely. Like, I don't know. I get animated like that, but like I'm frustrated, like I admitted, but like, it's not a personal thing. It's not like I dislike you in any sort of way.
Well, I appreciate
a person. I feel like that's the kind of filter that a lot of, not just you, but a lot of other people are kind of listening to my words through right now, is that I have some type of personal issue with any of you. I don't, right? Like, I really don't.
Well, yeah, what we're talking about is important. You're gonna get impassioned talking about it. I think that's normal. You know, especially when we're not agreeing on everything or seeing eye to eye, but yeah, it's normal. We're human beings.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we could definitely talk again, because you know, there's other topics that kind of go along with it that, you know, are confusing. Like, you brought up star seeds as an example. And and another thing I wanted to bring up, like, you guys realize, like, Paul Hellyer, Dr. Paul Hellyer, who was the Canadian defense minister, who talked about how in his time in office, he was aware of that government knowing of at least 5 different ET races.
That guy.
Uncle. That's my great uncle. I'm related to that man. Right. So it's not this idea that, like, I think that none of this exists is incorrect. This idea that they are using people to fight space battles is where I was saying that's the program. That's the part that isn't true. And yeah, it would be probably beneficial for us to talk again and kind of go into a little bit more of, like, specifics of things like star seeds or anything like that, or talk about simulation theory, any of that. Overall, man, like, I'm glad that we did this, because I don't want you or anyone else listening to feel like this is personal, because it's really not. Like, I empathize with you even if I disagree with you, and I love you even if I don't necessarily respect what you're saying. right? So please, anybody else listening to this, if you have this feeling like every post I make is about you and you need to jump on my Facebook and comment, please stop. Because but just please stop, okay? Go heck someone else, okay? And leave my
Oh
own.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah, knucklehead.
Yeah, right.
I know what you're talking about. I never got along with that guy either. I think he's a dick. But another thing of many that apparently we have in common.
Yeah,
but
I can openly be an asshole, and I apologize for that. I know I speak in generalities, and I can come across as a bit of a dick at times when I do that. I apologize for the people who get offended by that. I don't think I'm going to change though, because I only feel bad if I'm wrong, and until I'm wrong.
Yeah, and you do say too, another thing you say, and I agree with you. The proof is in the pudding. Time is the healer of all wounds and is a teller of all truths. And if there is a secret space program and life on Mars and all this other crazy shit, we will find out about it. If it's all a fucking lie and there's something else going on underneath our noses, I believe we will find out about it. I mean, there's too many people talking about it. Too many of the hatches has been opened. So it's like, I just am here. This is disclosure. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to disclose things. So I think we did a good job of that today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Cheers, brother. It was fun.
Cheers.
Yeah. Anytime you want to do it again, let me know.
I will. Thank you. And I'll just, I guess, stop recording and then say a little goodbye. Stop. Oh.